What else can be said about Bob Dylan? He is often called the greatest songwriter of all time, and in my opinion this is absolutely true. His ability to create worlds within language is unmatched in modern culture. Over his 60-year-long career, he's created timeless masterpieces of song and literature, whether it be acoustic anthems like A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, sardonic classics like Subterranean Homesick Blues, political whirlwinds like Hurricane, or vast epics like Murder Most Foul. Dylan was an artist who would transform and redefine himself time and time again, and this is why he's been able to stay relevant for so long. However, any time that he was given a label by the public, he would go in the opposite direction immediately after. To me, no album defines this trait better than 1970's Self-Portrait. This is BES. It is important to explain Bob Dylan's career and public image leading up to this album. On July 25, 1965, Dylan had shocked the music world by setting aside the acoustic guitar he was never without and trading it in for an electric guitar. The young political folk singer suddenly began playing rock and roll music. This intensely divided fans at the time, but with the benefit of hindsight, we see that this was one of the most important moments in modern music. For 3 albums, Dylan would continue this style of music until... On July 29, 1966, Bob Dylan suffered a motorcycle crash. For over a year, he rarely showed up in public and rarely recorded new material. He wouldn't return to touring for over 8 years. It wouldn't be until December of 1967 that Dylan would release a new album, titled John Wesley Harding. The album's musical and lyrical styles were more quaint and folk-oriented than his previous 3 albums, and this style would continue for several years. 2 years later, in April 1969, Dylan would release Nashville Skyline, a complete exercise in country music. It was during this album that he would adopt a soft crooner voice, in sharp distinction from his normally world-weary nasally vocal style. The album would become a huge hit, and songs like Lay Lady Lay and Tonight I'll Be Staying Here With You would become classic standards. By the end of the 1960s, Dylan was constantly referred to as the voice of a generation. And as we discussed earlier, Dylan always seeked to push boundaries and redefine labels, so naturally he didn't want to be the voice of a generation anymore. And how do you accomplish this? You create an album almost entirely made up of covers, instrumentals, live performances, and a tongue-in-cheek attitude. Also have it be double the length of the previous albums. This would be released in June 1970 as Self-Portrait. Dylan described, at the time and in later interviews, that the album was meant to be what he called an official bootleg album of material that would normally not be released to the public. He would release another album in a similar vein called The Basement Tapes half a decade later. While today the Basement Tapes album was and still is recognized for its unique appeal, Self-Portrait did not receive the same reaction. The album would be greeted with mass confusion, disappointment, and anger from Dylan's followers and the music media. The reaction can be succinctly described by an infamous review of the album from Rolling Stone magazine, beginning with the phrase, "What is this sh-?" The album is still commonly seen as one of the lowest points in Dylan's 40-plus album discography. But what if I were to tell you that there is more to this record than we initially thought? Despite the negative reception, the album got to number 4 and went gold in the US, as well as reaching number 1 in the UK. There must be something that the critics of the time did not understand about this album's appeal. After listening to the album repeatedly, I believe that I've found that appeal. I'll tell you about it as we discuss the album chronologically over its 4 sides. In my view, it is one of Bob Dylan's boldest and most distinct albums, and it holds an important place in his history.
For the tired horses in the sun, how am I supposed to get in and right and done?
The opening moments of an album are always important. All of Bob Dylan's albums before this one had begun with him playing an instrument, guitar or harmonica in the case of Blonde on Blonde, and singing. This album begins with none of these, but rather a set of female singers. They sing only these 2 lines throughout the song, and set the tone for the rest of the album. Dylan's songs would regularly range from lengthy poems to short stories, but in this opening song he establishes that we're about to hear something much different than before. These lines are also a sly joke about not being able to get any writing done. A soft guitar enters the song and then an elegant string arrangement. Both backup singers and strings were new to the Bob Dylan sound. This song also establishes that the heavy and reflective lyrics take a backseat during the album, while the instrumentation and atmosphere are the primary focuses. This song also establishes a more laid-back and inviting atmosphere with tinges of irony. By the end of the song, there is still an obvious piece missing, but we only have to wait until the next song to hear it. The voice of Bob Dylan is one that has remained controversial. It has both stood as the subject of ridicule, but also admired for its tired charm. Since many tend to focus on Dylan's poetry, they disregard his vocal abilities. But when observing his vocal styles over 40 albums, it is clear that Dylan is a performer first and a singer second. His style changes depending on the need of the performance. This aspect of his artistry was apparent all the way back in 1962 on his eponymous debut. The album consists of 2 original songs and 11 covers of folk standards. The songs covered on the album deal with themes of vagabond life, depression, and mortality set against a backdrop of rural plains, boxed cars, and endless highways. Despite only being 20 years old, Dylan sings with the pain, emotion, and life experience of someone 3 times his age. This album showed the world that Bob Dylan was a performer, a song and dance man, before anything else. It would be his second album, the freewheelin' Bob Dylan, that would show his excellence in writing. By the end of the 1960s, Dylan felt it was the time to remind everyone what he began his recording career as, a wandering songman drifting across the plains and trains of America. This is where Self-Portrait continues. Alberta No. 1 begins with a cozy instrumental style, with a gently bouncy rhythm section, humble harmonica, slide guitar accents, and fatigued vocals from Dylan. The 4 stanzas of lyrics are sung from the perspective of a desperate lover, repeatedly asking of the titular Alberta,
Alberta, let your hair hang low.
The point of view character wishes to bribe Alberta and derive sympathy.
I'll give you more gold than your apron can hold. Oh, my heart is sad, 'cause I want you so bad.
Even though the song is a cover, I believe the lyrics have a double meaning in the context of the album. While the album begins with a word from Dylan's perspective, this song is sung from the perspective of the public. My interpretation of this song is that Alberta is actually Dylan in this scenario. The critics and fans of the time believed Bob Dylan to be something specific, and desired that specific thing only. If it wasn't Desolation Row, Visions of Johanna, or It's Alright Ma, I'm Only Bleeding, then they weren't interested. This song lyrically analogizes the same public that tried consistently to box Dylan in to an individual constantly complaining to his unrequited love.
I've forgotten more than you ever.
I Forgot More Than You'll Ever Know continues from the prior musical and lyrical discussions. The song contains a gentle rhythm, pastoral guitar adornments, and a soft crooning voice. The music evokes memories of the American countryside, and to me, brings to mind a beautiful sunset. The lyrics, written by Cecil Null, explains from a wiser perspective that there's much more that you don't know about someone. This song also works as a lyrical double meaning in this album. Dylan is telling you not about her, but about himself. He's telling you, the listener, that there's a lot more to him than what you've heard elsewhere. This whole album seeks to display this through its emphasis on performance and musical atmosphere, rather than Dylan's lyrics. Days of 49, written by Alan and John Lomax as well as Frank Warner, exemplifies Dylan's ability to tell atmospheric stories. In this song, he takes on the alias of Old Tom Moore from the Bummer Shore. Tom Moore travels from town to town, reminiscing of the days of old. I believe this song, like the previous numbers, was chosen to fit with the context of the album. I believe this song's true meaning is that the public is Tom Moore in this scenario. During the song, Moore tells tales of the deaths of people he knew, like New York Jake and Poker Bill, but continually pines for these days to return. In Dylan's view, the critics and fans continually pine for the return of a dead version of himself. Early Morning Rain begins with a steady drum beat paired with gentle pianos, twinkling acoustic guitars, a thumping bass, and a crooning harmonica. Dylan's voice enters soon and provides a soft narration of a lonely man's story. The song's lyrics, written by Gordon Lightfoot, tell a tale of a man trying to find his way home. The lyrical allusion to Dylan's audience continues from the last song, but in a more sympathetic tone. Just as Old Tom Moore, this narrator also pines for something he feels that he's lost, something that Dylan fans feel that they have lost. In Search of Little Sadie, a traditional song, tells the story of a man by the name of Lee Brown who murders a girl referred to as Little Sadie. Musically, the song is more dramatic than the previous material, and it fits considering the story being told. I believe that this song also connects to the double-meaning dialogue pattern of the album. As stated previously, the Voice of a Generation label started to sour Dylan around this time, and he believed a change was necessary. As Lee Brown kills Little Sadie, Bob Dylan kills his label. The old Bob Dylan as he knew him is no longer around. In his place, a new one charts a course for a new artistic direction, and thus ends side 1. Side 2 opens with Let It Be Me, written by Gilbert Bécaud, Man Curtis, and Pierre Delano. The song is a wonderful love ballad with emotional piano, playful guitar accents, and a dramatic rising bridge. The tender croon of Dylan's voice in this song conveys a softness and affection that is rare in his catalog, but it serves the song well. The lyrics describe a deep and devotional love, and start Side 2 off on a more heartfelt note. I believe this is Dylan showing that this album is not entirely an esoteric joke or a waste of the listener's time. He takes a moment to sing a beautiful love song without any double meanings or figurative devices. He just asks you to let it be him.
I went out last night.
Wait a minute, I thought we just heard this song. Oh, I get it. That was In Search of Little Sadie. This is Little Sadie. This song proves yet again that this album looks to keep listeners on their toes. It's a slightly different take of a previous song in the album, but only 2 tracks later. As I described earlier, I believe this song to be an allegory for Dylan killing his previous career, and that meaning still stands. If anything, it shows that Bob Dylan wants to remind you of this fact. It even seems that he's rubbing it in your face with a faster and more playful tone, taking the stakes and grandiose weight the story had away. Boogie Boogie is an original instrumental composed by Bob Dylan. The song has a catchy piano riff, a driving rhythm section, and a ripping saxophone solo. The song doesn't serve as a grand statement or attempt to elicit any strong emotional response. It's just here as a fun and groovy musical moment. Sometimes that's just nice to have.
One evening for pleasure, I rambled.
Belle Isle, a traditional song arranged by Dylan, narrates the story of someone falling in love on the shores of an isle. The most striking musical aspect of the song is a graceful string arrangement that flows through the whole song. They give the song a whimsical quality. The song thematically serves as a light return to the romance of the Side 2 opener, Let It Be Me, but the next song is, in my opinion, the most distinctive on the album. Living the Blues is a bluesy rocker song that continues Side 2's themes of relationships. The narrator describes how he's living the blues without someone important to him. While talking about Belle Isle, I call this song the most distinctive on the album, and that's because it's the only song presented that feels like it could be from another Bob Dylan album. It follows a similar style to the songs that surround it. It has a touch of the country charm from Nashville Skyline and the soft rock style of New Morning. As well as this, it's an original writing, the only one in the album that is more than 2 lines, and a studio track, unlike the next song. Wait, a song from a previous album? A live version of a previous song? A live song on a studio album? All of these are true. This track is a live recording from Dylan's performance at the Isle of Wight Festival in 1970. This performance of his biggest hit single strays from the studio version, as do most live versions of Dylan's songs. Again, the album ensures that all preconceptions of what a Dylan record is supposed to be are destroyed. It also serves the thematic core of Side 2. In a side all about relationships, it feels very Dylan-esque to end it with a bitter mocking of a bourgeois woman's fall from a high status.
Get you a copper kettle.
Side 3 opens up with Copper Kettle, written by Albert Beddoe. This is one of the few tracks on the album that has received praise over the years, and I believe it's justified. It's another song on the album that showcases Bob Dylan's ability to melt into a character, in this case, a moonshiner regaling the listener about moonshining. The instrumental side of the song serves to bring this story to life. The song begins with soft backing vocals and a gentle acoustic guitar. The song builds as we get to the chorus with a transcendent string accompaniment. The whole song creates a quaint, knightly, and emotional atmosphere, but we can't stay here long because we
Done laid around.
We continue with Gotta Travel On, written by Paul Clayton, Larry Ehrlich, David Lazer, and Tom Six. The song has a playful and bouncy rhythm filled with tambourine, bongos, and bass. I almost think the rhythm section of the song mimics a wagon wheel, like the song is musically traveling as well as lyrically traveling. Dylan's voice is accompanied by backup singers, almost like a wagon trail sing-along. This is another example on the album of Dylan's most consistent musical persona, the American traveling storyteller, but this persona continues throughout the album and the next song.
Blue moon, you saw me standing up.
In Blue Moon, written by Lorenz Hart and Richard Rodgers, the narrator sings to the blue moon about his newfound love. The most prominent feature of the song is Dylan's gorgeous croon, backed by beautiful ooze and a moderate swing tempo. A fascinating feature of the song for me is the striking violin solo. It was the first time a violin was featured in a Bob Dylan album, but not the last. Dylan's 1976 album Desire features a prominent violin throughout the album, and this song precedes it by over half a decade. The Boxer, written by Paul Simon, narrates the lonely and poverty-stricken life of a New York City man. The song is humbly produced, with only soft acoustic guitars and bass. I've always thought that Dylan's vocal performance in this song was like a duet between his older and more current voice. I believe it gives the lyrics more depth, as he's describing this unfortunate story both from a younger and an older perspective. The Mighty Quinn, or Quinn the Eskimo, was a song created during the Basement Tapes sessions 3 years prior, and covered to great success by Manfred Mann. This recording is a live performance from the same Isle of Wight concert mentioned earlier. This performance captures a high-energy Dylan vocal with a groovy rhythm section and a catchy chorus. Take Me As I Am or Let Me Go, written by Boudleaux Bryant, and side 3 with a simple proposition to the audience. It's right in the title. Dylan asks you to understand him and his music for what it is, or to release him from your expectations. Musically, it is a Western-style song with a slow rhythm, twinkling piano accents, and atmospheric slide guitar. Vocally, Dylan isn't singing in desperation or anger. He's singing gently and calmly. He's not begging you to take him as he is or let him go. He's telling you with a firm calmness.
These are the words of a frontier lad.
Take a Message to Mary, written by Felice and Boudleaux Bryant, is a slightly bluesy tune with elements of soul. This is especially shown with the backup singers. The narrator tells the listener to take a message to his lover, whom he was about to marry. The narrator says to tell her anything but that he's in jail. Well, I won't tell if you won't tell.
So run here, baby. Put your little hands in mine.
It Hurts Me Too is a traditional song. Dylan's version is humbly produced, with just acoustic guitars, soft bass, and the singular Dylan vocal. The lyrics describe a devoted relationship. It's a simple number, but one that always feels comforting and cozy every time I hear it. Here we have another live performance from the Isle of Wight Festival. Musically, Minstrel Boy has a classic 1950s R&B rhythm with a catchy sing-along chorus. Written by Dylan, the lyrics ask who is going to take pity on a traveling minstrel boy. And as discussed earlier, the traveling song-dance man of the album is Dylan himself. So the song is asking the audience who is going to give the new Bob Dylan a chance. A great detail in the performance of the song is in the drumming during the choruses. When the vocalists sing,
Minstrel boy, a coin. Who's gonna let?
the drummer rings the cymbal to make it sound like coins jingling. It's a minor detail, but it helps to bring the story to life.
She's got it.
Another live song from the Isle of Wight performance continues side 4, a fan favorite from Bringing It All Back Home, She Belongs to Me. The song is performed in a unique way with a faster tempo and Dylan's delightful croon. As the final live song on the album concludes, we move on to the only single from the album. The next song is Wigwam, an original composition. Like Woogie Boogie, Wigwam is more of a transitory musical vignette. It features prominent horns, a full band, and playful nonverbal ad-libs from Dylan. It's a delightful musical moment, but serves an entirely different purpose. Wigwam was, in fact, the lead and only single from this album. It was meant to be purposefully different from his previous singles, as was the album. This single was also a reason for the public's confused reaction to the project. We're finally at the end of the album, and Dylan chooses to end it with an alternative take of a previous song. Yes, similar to Little Sadie, we have 2 takes of a song both featured on the album. The main difference in this take is the tempo. The song is faster and has a bouncy rhythm. The lyrics, unchanged, still convey the double meaning relating to Dylan's audience. It's fitting to end the album with a cyclical and unresolved lyrical identity. The second song on the album chastises the public that wanted to control Dylan, and the final song does the same, but with more energy. Alberta No. 2 cements this album's legacy in the Bob Dylan canon as a subversive and striking record, and thus concludes Bob Dylan's 10th studio album, Self-Portrait. Before we end this video essay, there is one thing that I have yet to mention about this album. its cover. It's a painting made by Dylan in 5 minutes. It's also the source of the name of the album. The name of the album, in my opinion, was created for the purpose of setting the listener up for disappointment. When imagining a self-portrait painting of Bob Dylan, the listener's mind might create images of moodiness, iconoclasm, and genius. But when observing the final product, it's laughable. The title and album cover serve to divert prior expectations and get the audience to think differently about the album they are about to hear, and the album serves to justify this interpretation. Perhaps Self-Portrait doesn't live in infamy because of its cover-heavy track listing, inconsistent production, or lack of Dylan poetry. Maybe this album is disdained because of what it isn't rather than what it is. No matter what you personally think of Self-Portrait, it would be difficult to argue that the album was not a bold statement. From song to song, the album weaves a rich narrative of American culture from the perspective of a traveling songman. The cover songs chosen construct a self-portrait of Dylan by showing the types of songs that inspired him, as well as songs from artists who Dylan inspired, showing a world both before and with Dylan in it. Self-Portrait showed that Bob Dylan was not going to live off of his prior success alone, but rather continue to push expectations and keep his audience on their feet. Above all, the album proved what Dylan really was, an unidentifiable, ever-changing, once-in-a-lifetime artist, a perpetually rolling stone. I wasn't going to be anybody's puppet, and I figured this record would put an end to that. I was just so fed up with all that who people thought I was nonsense. Bob Dylan, 1985.
Don't let around, don't stand around this old town too long. Summer's almost gone, winter's coming on. Don't let around, don't stand around this old town too long. And it seems like you just gotta drive along. And it seems like you just gotta drive along. Baba writes to Johnny, Johnny, can you come home? Johnny, can you come home? Johnny, can you come home? Baba writes to Johnny, Johnny, can you come home? Johnny's been out on the road too long. So I don't let around, don't stand around this whole town too long. Summer's almost gone, winter's coming on. Now don't lay around, don't sit around this old town too long. And it seems like you just gotta drive along. That silly wind will soon begin, and now we on my way, going home to stay, going home to stay. That silly wind will soon begin, and I'll be on my way, and I feel like I just wanna drive along. Well, I don't lay around, don't stand around this old town too long. Summer's almost gone, winter's coming on. So I don't lay around, don't stand around this old town too long. And it seems that I just gotta drive alone. This lonesome freight at 608 coming through the town. I'll be homeward bound, I'll be homeward bound. There's a freight at 608 coming through the town, and I feel like you just gotta drive along. Well, I don't let around, don't sit around this old town too long. Summer's almost gone, winter's coming on. Well, I don't lay around, don't stand around this old town too long. And it seems like I just gotta drive along. And it seems like I just gotta drive along. And it seems like I just gotta drive along.